inviting me to your beautiful town, your beautiful area, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to tell you why 2 months ago I jumped into the race for governor. 13 men and me in the race, but it's been very exciting. And people ask me, isn't it awful there's so many people in the race? And what I say is, wouldn't it be awful if no one wanted to run? Given the size of the deficit facing the state and given the problems that we have to deal with as a state, it's wonderful that people are willing to give their time, their talents, their money to believe in what we can be as a state and believe the opportunities that we can give to all the people who live in our state. So I want to spend a few minutes tonight telling you why I have entered the race, a little bit about my background, why I think I can win as the next governor of Connecticut. Maybe some of you remember I spent a lot of time here in 2006. I was lieutenant governor candidate. I ran with Dan Malloy. I was proud to be on the ticket. We worked hard to try to raise some of the issues that we're still talking about here 4 years later. I won my primary. I got 57% of the vote. Dan Malloy was on the ticket, got 49% of the vote. Ned Lamont was also on the ticket. He got 52% of the vote. So I win real well when I'm on a primary ballot. So my goal is to come out of this convention with 15% of the delegates and the $250,000 that I need to run my race. So far I've raised more than half my money. When we file our papers next week, I'll be showing that I've raised about $133,000 and have received more than 1,500 contributions. So it's really exciting to have been in the race for such a short time and to have received so much support and so much encouragement, because I think I bring a different voice to the race, and I've entered the race because I think things that are important to me and I've seen on the state of Connecticut are not being talked about by the other candidates. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from New Britain, Connecticut. Those of you who know the hardware city capital of the world, I grew up in New Britain. My mom grew up in New Britain. She was one of 7. She was actually raised in foster care in East Haddam, Connecticut. When she was about 8, her parents got very sick, and she was put in a foster home until she was 18. She returned to New Britain, and where she met my dad, Angelo Messina, who owned a bar and grill in New Britain. They married. They had 4 children. I'm one of 4. I have 3 brothers. When I was 4, my dad died very suddenly, and leaving my mom to raise the 4 of us in New Britain. It was very difficult. She was a widower. She had never worked. She was a seamstress, but there wasn't daycare back then. So as a kid growing up in New Britain, I know how tough it is to grow up without being able to afford to go to college. But my parents made it very clear, and my mom did in raising us, that all of us were expected to go to college. And while she couldn't afford to send us, we were going to figure out a way, we were going to go. We lived in New Britain, so we were very close to the Central Connecticut State University. So my brothers went to Central. They walked right down the street. And I went to the University of Connecticut because I've always been a little bit of a rebel. My mom didn't drive, and the first time I actually saw UConn was when she dropped me off. And as a kid from New Britain, I was like, what am I doing here? No street lights, no sidewalks, get me out of here. But I was really fortunate that I could afford to work in the summer and go to UConn. I graduated with a degree in journalism, was actually the first class that offered a journalism degree at UConn. Moved back to New Britain, where I was a newspaper reporter. Covered municipal government, covered mayors, and at that time a council. In 1980, we actually had a municipal corruption probe in the city of New Britain. I don't know if you remember that. We don't talk about that. No, I know. The state of Connecticut's not familiar with politicians getting arrested. But what happened was there was a jobs fixing scandal where if you wanted a promotion as a firefighter or a policeman, you took the test and then you paid $200 to the personnel director and you got your promotion. But it was a really difficult time in the city. There were about 35 people that went to jail. I was a reporter assigned to cover courts, and I didn't really understand what they were saying, so I had a brother at UConn Law School at the time, and he said if you went to law school at night, you'd really understand how the court system worked. So for $500 a semester, I went to University of Connecticut Law School at night. Got a degree in law and started practicing as a construction litigation attorney. I practiced as a construction litigation attorney with the firm of Pepe and Hazard until 1991, when I missed a town committee meeting one night. They were looking for a candidate to run for office, and there I was. 6 weeks later, I was the new first selectman in the town of Simsbury and the first Democrat elected in 40 years. Wow. So yeah, so that was great. I'm telling you a little bit about my background because I think it's important that you know what's important to me and my values. And I am here tonight as a candidate for governor because of the opportunities I had in growing up in Connecticut. The fact that I could get an education, I could afford to get an education, the fact that I could live in a state where not only could I get an education, I could get a job, I could raise my family, and had so many opportunities. And I don't think Connecticut is the same place of opportunity that we used to provide. And so for me, a lot of the issues about education, about job growth, about open government, I think we really need to do a better job in the state of Connecticut. I was first selectman in the town of Simsbury for 4 terms, 8 years. I decided not to run again when I got a call from the Speaker of the House, Maura Lyons. She was looking for a staff attorney, and I went up to the Capitol, where I worked for 8 years at the state Capitol. I was counsel to her for during the time when we worked on the transportation strategy bill. It's very important to you guys down here, because in 2001 we did a study that showed that Connecticut was becoming an economic cul-de-sac, and that we really needed to focus on rails, improving our high-speed rail system. We needed to focus on our deep water ports. We needed to focus on buses. And what we found is that we had a plan that the governors of Connecticut never implemented. All we had to do was to take the gas tax money and to put it into a transportation fund. And yet, we had a governor cut the gas tax, and then we swept the gas tax into general fund surplus. So here we are, 9 years later, and we still don't have a high-speed rail system, and we still don't have money dedicated to what it should be going for, is a transportation system that could provide such a wonderful linkage between New York and Boston. Just think of how we change the opportunities in the state of Connecticut when you can get to New York or Boston within an hour. And it completely changes housing, job opportunities, and I've seen where we've had policies in place, we've had the plan to do what's best for the future of our state, but we just didn't do it. I also went to work in a lieutenant governor's office when Governor Rowland resigned. I became chief of staff in the lieutenant governor's office, and I got to see again the experiences that state policies can have on cities and towns and businesses. A couple of the issues I worked on was mental health, advocacy, education, and special education. And I saw firsthand how our special ed system in the state actually is a deterrent for towns to offer a good special ed program. Because the towns that offer a good special ed program get punished because people move into your town, you have to spend more money, and it's actually, you're discouraged to provide good service to the kids who need it most. I also saw where the education cost sharing formula was so twisted and distorted that no one in the state of Connecticut could even explain how it works or how it supports towns and cities all across our state. In 2006, after the race for lieutenant governor, I became a child advocate for Connecticut Voices for Children, where it really opened my eyes to the state of affairs in our state. The fact that Connecticut is the wealthiest state in the country, and we have the poorest children in the entire nation that live in our state, in our urban areas. The fact that 60% of 4th graders can't read a national standard, and the impact that those policies have by not educating our children has on the growth of our correction industry, our correction department, and also, it is an industry. Yeah. It is. It's the fastest growing, and I just heard a statistic from UConn Law School that said we have the highest teenage incarceration rate in the entire country. I had to read it 3 times because I couldn't believe that that's the state that we've created. So I decided in 2007 to go back to Simsbury because I missed the advocacy of cities and towns, and I missed being an elected official. Came back to my town. I was re-elected. I beat a Republican incumbent. I love when I do that. It's so fun. And just won my re-election with 70% of the vote in this town of Simsbury, which is made up of mostly Republicans and independents. So I do real well in bringing Republicans, independents, and Democrats together. I do real well winning elections. And I think I bring a different message.